And we're live.
Hello!
Hello!
Welcome. It's Monday night generational change. I'm Jen.
I'm Peter, and my hair's getting all kind of
every day
I've got like
we
the
have
Superman.
a show, it's about your hair.
I've got the Superman hair going.
We're
on.
so high maintenance. It's just ridiculous.
Couldn't have been a better time to bring our first guest, who's already here, Austin Valle, onto the show, because Anna Eskamani has announced her re-election campaign in the newly drawn District 42. Now, apparently, it's very similar to District 47, but obviously we'll have.
I was just thinking we should have her back on,
Yes.
like sooner rather than later.
Right.
There's some things happening that we should be discussing.
Right, light if there may be, but we are going to be speaking with one of the best advocates in all of the Orlando metro area, because one thing that our wonderful state has a huge problem with, especially on the I-4, is housing.
Well, no.
It's a big problem.
Affordable housing. There's housing. There is plenty of housing.
That's fair.
Okay. There's no housing shortage, people. We have housing.
It's amazing how Florida, and we'll talk about this with Austin, but Florida's got like the top, out of like the top 10 in the country, Florida's got like 4 of them.
Yeah, well, Miami rents are the highest this year, like have increased the highest percentage.
Oh, but Tampa and Orlando are fighting very hard for that time.
Yeah. Like it's bad. Yeah, it's really bad.
Really bad. So without further ado, the name of the organization?
It's YIMBY.
YIMBY.
As opposed to NIMBY, people. So we're going to find out about that. But yes, in my backyard.
Yes,
First, I don't have a backyard anymore.
Austin Valle, welcome to Generational Change.
Hey, Jen. Hey, Peter. Nice to see you both. Thanks for the opportunity to be here.
Absolutely, brother.
Hi. Yeah, I was, I every once in a while read the news. I don't generally read news, but I do for the show. And I specifically look up news in Florida. And I try to find things that are not the typical story of the day. And I came across an article about what you're doing in your organization. And I thought, that's really cool. We need to do that here. So I thought at a minimum, I'd love to meet you and get you on the show. So talk a little bit about, because I know that you're affiliated with a national thing, but talk a little bit about like what's going on that inspired you to at least create this local version, if you would.
Sure, absolutely. So first of all, I'm born and raised in Central Florida. And so this is home for me. And like myself and a lot of people I love, we've dealt with the housing situation here. So as I looked around my community and was inspired by a lot of other folks doing some incredible work in Orlando, I thought, what can I do to get involved here? And this was an issue that, again, for me, was personal for myself and people I love. So I jumped into trying to figure out how we can advocate for this best. And we looked to some of our other incredible advocates in Orlando. You mentioned Anna Eskamani earlier.
Yeah.
She's one. I should add, you mentioned her maps. In the new maps, I'm no longer in her district. I've always been her constituent. So when you talk to her, ask her about the College Park area, because we're going to miss her. But, inspired by folks like her, like Representative Carlos Smith, like so many others in Orlando who dove into the issues. And this was one for me that felt important to get into. And so, there was something, as soon as we started talking about a potential solution to this, it just kind of took off. Jen, you said you read the news often in Orlando. I feel like every day, or at least multiple times a week, it's on the front page of the Orlando Sentinel or one of our other major papers or sites around here. The housing affordability crisis, housing affordability, housing, sprawl, no infill housing. And one thing that I noticed is that in very few of those articles did it talk about policy. It just stated the problem. And the way I viewed it, my background is in economics. I thought this is a policy problem. And there are people who are responsible for this who are not being held to account. Because when we just talk about the problem and aren't talking about the policies that are leading to the problem, people are getting off the hook. And so part of the reason that a few of us started this organization was to make that case and talk about the policies that are in part leading to this crisis, and then propose some potential solutions to help try to fix it. So that's what we embarked to do. We're about a year old now, just about a year old. And so, yeah, we can talk a little bit more about it, but that's why we came together, was we saw a problem. No one was talking about how to fix it in our view. And so we wanted to do that.
Yeah. And I think that that's great. And I just like the whole concept of getting the NIMBY thing. And I am that generation, unfortunately. I'm Gen X. Like that's what, But I will say, for the most part, what it referenced for me growing up was like nuclear and waste and those kinds of plants. It wasn't really affordable housing. So like I was never averse to, you know, all different levels of housing. But, you know, when we were coming on, we said like, there's plenty of housing. There is no shortage of housing. Like, and I know that where you are so overdeveloped, super developed, but in all the wrong ways. So talk about like, what is the current status of the unhoused? What is the current, like, because I would imagine it's off the charts, and I would imagine that there's lots of unoccupied housing.
Yeah, so I would say both in the wrong ways and in the wrong places. So when we look at the data on housing, at least in the Orlando area, we recently had some census data. So there's three stats that I think are important here. The one is in the greater Orlando area. Over the last 10 years, the population has increased at a rate of 1.5 times as fast as the housing supply. So Orlando is just growing. At one point, this was pre-pandemic, but it was something like 1,000 people a week were moving to Orlando. So just a ton of people are moving here, and the housing hadn't kept up. The second was that the rental vacancy rate in Orlando proper is about 5%. And what you really want is closer to 10, 15, right? Because when we hear stories of an apartment goes up for rent in downtown Orlando and there's 100 applicants the same day, the tenants don't have any power in that arrangement. And then the last one that we cite is the number of homes for sale in Orlando is at a record low. There's fewer homes for sale today than ever before. So, but to your point, Jen, a lot of what we've seen in Orlando is sprawled housing, is housing on the far outskirts of the city. What we talk about is what we call housing near opportunity. Where are we putting housing near jobs and housing near transit? Orlando has this commuter rail system, regional rail system called Sunrail that we've invested, us in the state, and there's been federal dollars supported as well, billions of dollars to build this out. And we don't really have outside of a lot of these rail stations, you see surface parking lots and single family homes. That's where we want to be building our housing, not further and further away from the core of our city where commutes are far. Often you're paying toll roads to get to your work. It's not an environmentally sustainable way to build. And so where we want that housing to be is in the core of our region so that people can live near where they're working, can walk places, can bike places, can take the bus, can take the train, and not have to rely on cars to get there. So that's a lot of what we deal with. Sometimes I joke that if I were to ever write a book, it would be called Highways to Nowhere, the story of Central Florida growth, because that's what we do. And I know South Florida as well. North Florida does it too. You build a highway, no one needs it, but you know who needs it is the landowner who owns a bunch of land in the middle of nowhere, who now can build houses on it because there's a highway out there. So we've seen that over and over again. And what we really focus on is building densely within our cities so that we don't have to sprawl and put housing in what we would consider to be the wrong place.
We're speaking with Austin Valle of YIMBY in Orlando, Florida. Austin, we are huge advocates for high-speed rail. I think that would have a tremendous impact on especially the I-4 corridor, where everything is just, it's so overdeveloped, much like South Florida. What are some of the initiatives that you think would help alleviate some of these obvious issues regarding, I mean, we know what the problems are related to what is being built and what isn't being built, but in terms of, I think transportation is a huge part of this equation, as you just alluded to. So do you see high-speed rail as being, akin to one of the main benefits that could come from something like this? And are there other things that you think would also be beneficial? Yeah,
high-speed rail, light rail, all rail, all of the above. More, we like to see too more frequent and reliable bus service that reaches all parts of our county. We want to see dedicated space to this sort of transit, potentially even replacing lanes that are dedicated to cars and replacing those for bus-only lanes for really rapid bus transit systems. In general, this is a really important point. Is you're exactly right, Peter. Transportation and housing go together. You for the type of walkable, sustainable density that we're talking about, you really need transit as part of that equation. People often say that Orlando is full. And, I like to say Orlando has plenty of room for more people, but we're running out of room for more cars. cars take up a lot of space. I was talking to a nearby mayor of a more suburban area outside of Orlando, and they had looked at the data in their city and showed that 2/3 of the developed land in their city was dedicated to roads and parking lots. And only 1/3 was dedicated to buildings. And that would include housing and commerce and things like that. So we're using our space in the wrong ways. Transportation is a key part of that to make sure that we can have that sort of density here. Walking to where you need to go. We shouldn't need a 2-ton steel killing machine to go get a quart of milk. You should be able to walk to go get that in a properly built, dense city. And in Orlando, that's quite rare. And to have that sort of amenity is exorbitantly expensive. It should not be a luxury good for your child to be able to walk to school. That should be something that anybody should be able to do if they want to.
I used to walk and ride my bike to school, and also that has to do with the quality of the schools that are walkable to places that are generally lower funded areas. Right. So it isn't that they can't walk to school, it's that the school they might be able to walk to sucks, especially in Florida, where 48 out of 50 people in education. It's not a good selling point. And what freaks me out the most about it, and I know this is slightly off topic, is the fact that of the states that are at the bottom, we're by far the wealthiest. Like, we're one of the wealthiest states in the country. And when you look at the states that are at the top of education, there's a correlation between the state's wealth and their education.
Except for Florida.
And it's very telling about us as a state that, even states that we don't necessarily love their politics, the correlation between their wealth and their education are connected. And yet we are out of whack.
And I hate to say it, a good example of that would be Texas versus Florida. Yeah. That would be a great example.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Peter.
I was going to ask you a very important question. It's the elephant in the room, and I need to step out for a minute. But how big of a role does Disney Incorporated play in all of this? Because I am guessing that they play a huge role in why housing is so nightmarish in the Orlando area.
Well, they have huge control over the highway infrastructure in Orlando and that entire area. That goes back decades. Are you familiar with all that?
Yeah, there's a lot of history there. I recently
can't go without eating. Okay.
No problem. I get it.
Very high maintenance.
Yeah, in general, especially when it comes to transportation projects, our business community has a lot of sway in that. I read an article recently from 1999. I was doing some old research on some old rail projects, and there was a proposed rail line to go into the tourist district from downtown. And a lot of the rails that we're talking about, for instance, Peter referenced earlier the high-speed rail, that's not even meant to go to downtown. That's going to just go to our airport. So it's really important for us to have connectivity to downtown. And this particular rail system would have come from downtown to our tourist corridor. And in it, you have quotes from iDrive, which is our tourist corridor executives, talking about, oh, this train's just going to bring crime. We don't want that sort of, the riffraff to come here. And so that iDrive, a lot of the influential people along iDrive managed to get that project killed. And it was a 4-3 vote. And we were so close to having a sort of rail line like that. And so you do see influences like that from the business community from time to time. When it comes to housing too, I mean, we think about, we support both market rate housing and when we say, maybe the discussion around this too, affordable housing is a loose term. When we talk about affordable housing, we talk specifically about subsidized housing or providing government subsidies for that housing. And it's typically income constrained. And look, at the end of the day, that takes public dollars. And so when we have industry groups around the state undercutting, corporate tax rates or whatever it might be, and taking those dollars out of the public coffers, those are dollars that could be going towards programs like this that could fund that sort of subsidized housing. So certainly in the state of Florida, there's an outsized influence from a number of business interests. And that's a challenge when it comes to trying to find funding sources in the state. There's options locally, there's options at the federal level. Those statewide, that can be a challenge. And we've seen that basically every year, the state refuses to fund our affordable housing.
Yeah, it's funny. Like, I look at these things as it's pathetic that we even need to be having this discussion for so many reasons. And I look at this affordable housing similar to I look at the idea of a minimum wage. We shouldn't need that. Okay. See, affordable housing shouldn't be a problem because people should be paid a living wage for their work. And by living wage, that means people could afford to live. So like we wouldn't be having to be building affordable housing because people would just be able to afford to live. You know what I mean? And it's like, and I feel the same way about a minimum wage. Like countries in Scandinavia, they don't have minimum wage, but they have extremely strong labor unions and they have economic systems that are built around labor. And so labor is very powerful there. And so they don't need a minimum wage. They just can work and get paid a living wage. So it's like, this is very frustrating to me about the housing situation, because clearly there's so much real estate development for wealthy people going on in Florida at a rate that's, it's unparalleled.
You know,
and yet,
So I wanted to on the wage point, it is such an important point. And one of my biggest pet peeves is, as we talk about housing in Orlando and Tampa, other places in Florida, you get many folks, I like friends of mine, they'll say, oh, they live in New York City, say, or San Francisco. Oh, well, you should see what it's like in New York. You should see what it's like in San Francisco. But Jen, what you're hitting on is that, okay, but what you pay for housing with is your wage. And so when you normalize the cost of housing to wages, Orlando is the 5th least affordable in the country. Less affordable than places like New York City, San Francisco, and Chicago. Tampa's up there as well. South Florida's up there as well. And so you're hitting on such an important point, which is that we can't really talk about housing affordability without also talking about wages. And when you look at those two things in combination, it tells a really scary story in the state of Florida.
Yeah. And another thing that's interesting when I think about Scandinavian countries, which isn't even just Scandinavian countries, but lots of countries in Europe, there's countries where the majority of people live in what is public housing. And it's all different levels of public housing. It's not like, a commune where everybody's in the same unit. And that's just very normal there. And only very wealthy people don't live in what is government housing. And like that to me makes sense. And now I'm going to people are going to call me a communist. Go ahead, have at it, whatever. But like, there's got to be a happy medium, people. Like there's got to be a way. And I know there is. There is. It isn't that we don't know how to do this. We absolutely could figure this out. This isn't rocket science. It's just greed.
Yeah, one of the best examples in this, and I'd encourage folks to go check it out. What you're alluding to is one of the best examples that I've seen is the city of Vienna in Austria. Is the majority of residents there live in the sort of term du jour is social housing, right? It's to distinguish it from typically as we think about public housing or affordable housing. It is only for lower income and it's subsidized units. Instead, when you see something like this more social housing model, someone making well above median income might rent there, but you might have 2 units next to each other that look the exact same. But if one household is making half as much as the other household, they're going to pay a different rental rate. And so the neighbors don't really know or see or care what each other are earning or paying for that unit. They're all paying into that same building. And so what you're doing is the government is sort of making a profit, if you will, on the more expensive rent that they're charging, and they're using that to subsidize the lower income folks. And so to your point, Jen, these models exist. Something like this is not too widespread in the US, though you're starting to see it pick up a little bit of traction. I would recommend folks check out groups like the People's Policy Project, who have done some really interesting work to figure out what that could look like here in the US. And we at Orlando YIMBY think about stuff like this. And as we advocate and talk to elected officials and candidates, those are the types of policies we want to think a little bit outside the box from how we do it here, and encourage them to think about policies like that. And so we've done that with different candidates. Particularly something like that would take place at the federal level. But yeah, those policies exist, and not implementing here is a lack of will, not a lack of knowing how to do it.
Of course. So before I let you go, I need to just know this as it's personal. It's not really a personal question, but it's a non-work. Well, I don't even know if it's that. You're talking about how the vote didn't go the way it should have gone. Have you considered running?
Oh, that's a nice question.
No, seriously, you should run for local. You should run for Orlando, wherever it is that you are. You should definitely run.
I appreciate that. We luckily here in Orange County, we've got a lot of strong candidates and a lot of strong elected officials. There's some that's for sure we need to get out of there. I don't know. I have too much fun tweeting. I don't know if I could tweet the things that I do if I was an elected official. But
you'd be surprised. I mean, have you seen how Anthony Sabatini tweets? I mean,
fair enough. Maybe not the best role model, but you
definitely not. No, but he's proof that you could tweet anything and still get away with it, and he might very well be a congressman, which is something.
Oh gosh! Don't even shovel the meal, didn't you?
Don't even.
You ate a meal.
I had a snack.
I can smell it.
I can smell it from here. No.
Unbelievable.
One of the things that we've been talking about recently that's very important as far as running for office is this idea that, especially in the non-corporate progressive movement, a lot of people are disenchanted with the Democratic Party. They don't really know how they want to be involved. And some people are drifting towards trying to form a third party. The reality is we have city council, we have county commission, we have school board. These are all nonpartisan seats. And they are immensely important, especially in places like Orlando. And you don't have to be in the Democratic Party to run for them. I would like to think that in our, millennial Gen Z window that a lot of us are in, even Gen X, we could throw them in there too. We really want to see this change. It's very important that we do. And if we're able to bring along more individuals like yourself, and obviously, I mean, Anna's doing a great job. Carlos is doing a great job. We're obviously huge fans of Maxwell Frost. Hopefully he'll be able to, win that congressional primary race.
That'll actually work out very fortuitously for all of us, actually, the whole thing. Hey, either way, win or lose, it works out for us on that end.
Well, thank you, Senator Bracey, for screwing the state with your vote for the anti-solar bill. You just made life a lot easier for Maxwell to campaign against you, so that's a good thing. I think that if we continue to have these conversations and bring more attention to the issues that are of most importance to people, housing, of course, being one of the absolute most important ones, I think we're going to eventually make something happen here. The old guard of the Democratic Party is still hanging on for dear life, but I think our time is coming, and it's just a question of when.
I love that point. If I can make one final point here, as we think about housing, no doubt, a lot of this policy is determined at the federal level and the state level. But I don't know fully, and part of what Orlando YIMBY was formed was to educate folks on this, is how much of it is determined by your city council and by your county commissioners. And, the type of housing that you can build in your city is determined by these antiquated maps that your city council and your county commission determine. And so in the city of Orlando, in Orange County, the vast majority of the type of housing that your maps say that you can build is detached single-family homes. And detached single-family homes is the most expensive form of housing. And so if we ever want to make this a beautiful, walkable, affordable place to live, we need to introduce duplexes, fourplexes, 3-story walk-up apartments, garden apartments, this sort of housing that was very widespread in the 40s, 50s, 60s, and then politics got ugly. And cities started to try to keep types of housing and types of people out of their cities and out of their neighborhoods. And they began to ban that sort of housing. It's why our mantra is to legalize housing, is we've got to allow this sort of housing that's more affordable for people. And so you can do that on your city council and on your county commission. And so I would absolutely encourage people, if they want to make a difference in housing, to get involved locally, because a lot of that policy is determined there.
Yeah, when we talk about the issues of, like systemic racism and a lot of the problems that people face, blockbusting and redlining is a huge thing. And I'm in real estate, so I can assure you it's a real thing. That is something that we desperately have to fight against. And so when people say that, we're not, doing what we need to do, or that, we definitely want housing and this and that. Well, you have to be willing to have it in your own, in your
backyard.
In your backyard.
That's it.
That's why I've got a partner to sweep me up.
And I'm old enough to remember now.
I love it.
Well, that works out well.
Thank you so much, Austin.
Thank you.
Like, that's the best part of this job is I'll read something that's cool and I'll message him and I'm like, get this person on the show. And he's pretty good. Like, you're pretty reliable. There's a few that you haven't gotten yet.
A little bit.
Still waiting on Willie Nelson.
Yeah.
I've got.
Well, what can you do?
Well, Austin, if you have we're trying to do a really special 420 live stream in just over a month.
Sure.
So,
I want my Willie Nelson get.
That's smart. That's a good get.
You'll settle for Jim Belushi.
I'd be very happy with Jim Belushi.
I'll be watching.
Appreciate you, my friend.
Thank you,
Austin
guys.
Valle. Check him out. Thank you so much, brother. We'll definitely be in touch.
All right, take care.
Have a good one.
Bye.
He was lovely.
He's a very nice guy, and obviously he
should
cares very
definitely
much.
run. He should run for that city council.
Well,
seat.
like you said, sometimes when you end up running, it's not a question of you wanting to, it's people telling you, listen, we'll be there.
I
We'll support
know,
you.
but it's like just, that's the kind of people you want in your local commission, is somebody with a brain for housing and wanting to actually help.
Well, we are going to get into a very fun conversation.
We are, and contrary to what Sarah Bomberger says.
We have definitely heard of this guy.
Oh,
You know who
for
he
God's
is.
sake.
He's a pretty big deal. He's is that Rita Hayworth? That is Rita Hayworth, isn't
I
it?
think so.
I think I'm right about
Wait a
that.
minute. Yeah.
That's definitely Rita. So I got it right. He is definitely one of the most interesting, I want to say controversial, I would just say most interesting YouTubers and commentators of our current time. We obviously
I'm sorry, go on. Sorry.
Oh, you have commentary?
I have commentary on this. My commentary is that as someone who is my age, who has been an atheist my entire life, like seriously my entire life, there was never like a point when I did believe and then didn't believe. Never, just never believed. It was never a thing. And so, growing up, that was always kind of weird to people. It was very weird to people, and they didn't get it. And it was always a very strong part of how I identify. And I remember getting sent to the principal's office daily for refusing to say the pledge because I didn't like the under God portion. And I remember this like regularly. I want to say I was like in 3rd grade when this started.
I must have had quite an impact.
Yeah, whatever. But so my point is that I remember coming across this guy's channel like years ago. And again, I was much more involved in terms of like secularism and atheism than I was politically for this period of time. This was during Obama's second administration when I checked out. I was hopeless.
Well, hopefully we will bring back the separation of church and state, because Lord knows in our political
So
arena
I
today,
am very excited to talk to the Amazing Atheist. And to me, this is something like the fact that there's a show out there and that this is a thing now is inspiring, because it means more people are waking up, and that is pleasing to me.
Well, he's definitely playing a role in making that happen. The Amazing Atheist, welcome to Generational Change.
Hello. Thank
Hi.
you for that introduction.
That is Rita Hayworth. Am I right? Did I get that one right?
No, I transitioned.
Norma Jean.
Look, I'm beautiful.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, you were.
No, it's Rita Hayworth.
It's Rita Hayworth.
And this is not Rita Hayworth. Hey.
Oh, there you are. Hi.
What's up?
What with all the cool bearded guys on YouTube? Like all like my people that I like the most that come on are all, there's Bo and Vosh, and everybody's bearded. I love it.
Yeah, I have my beard is the largest though.
Is that
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely the most resplendent. So
all right? So maybe you would be willing to, because I had asked Bo and Vosh if they would be willing to have like a beard off situation. Like we talked about that at some point, but
No, I think Bo is definitely envious of
Vosh's
Mr.
beard.
Atheist. No,
oh, this beard? Oh
Yeah,
yeah, no,
absolutely.
this is like ZZ Top.
it is easy time. Absolutely.
yeah, it's not even done. It's gonna be super long one day.
Are you gonna?
You're going to be able to walk on it.
Yeah, when I start tripping on it, then it's probably long enough.
There you go.
Thank you so much for coming on, and thank
Thanks
you
for having me.
forwarding us that nice pay. You what do you call it? What super chat you got from our troll?
Yeah.
I don't know who it is. I'm dying to find out. I don't think that it's the person who she says it is. Like, I don't think that's who it actually is. But this is someone who really, really hates me, and I really don't know why.
Hmm.
Do you have anybody that really hates you, even though they don't know who the hell you are?
I'm sure you do. You must.
Not that I know of. Everybody loves me. Universally loved.
No, you've been doing this too long to be universally loved. I mean, there's
Oh
gotta be
no,
people.
everybody, the entire world. Just bring it up on the streets. Anybody you ask, it's like, yeah, he's great.
Jacob, thank you very much for your support. And yeah, you know what? One of the things that we do talk about a lot down here, of course, is we dealt with an SJW type situation when Jen first ran for Congress, and I just find it the whole like cancel culture thing. I understand that there are people who do things that are bad, and it becomes sort of we have to deal with not having this toxicity in our discourse and all that. But it's like people are looking for a reason to cut somebody off at the knees, and you've obviously been very outspoken about that, and I we certainly appreciate your
Yeah,
taking-
I mean, I wish I could kind of go back and refine those criticisms a little better, because I kind of see that in retrospect, they, certain things I said maybe gave cover to the rise of the red wave of like 2016 and stuff. Not to give myself too much credit. I'm a tiny little cog in a vast machine, but I mean, I feel like the anti-SJW stuff, I feel like it was a bipartisan kind of thing, and it was definitely something that ended up being a very right-wing space in the long run, which is probably why I don't do that kind of content anymore, because it would just be too confusing for people.
Let me ask you, like, how did you get into this in the beginning? Because like there was this huge period of time for me where YouTube, where shows were getting like, that was where I was getting information, but I wasn't really interested politically at that moment. It was the only time I wasn't, was Obama's second administration. Like I didn't do anything politically. And I started coming across a lot of things that were more like my people. And this has been something, like I said, I've always been an atheist. It's never even a thing for me. To me, it was always God and Santa Claus was the kind of the same thing. Like my parents taught me, don't ruin it for other people, but just, you know what you know.
Yeah, I mean, when I was growing up, I snuck out on Christmas night, not to see Santa Claus, but to prove that my parents were the ones putting the presents out. I set when I lost a tooth, I put a bunch of stuff against my door so that no one could enter the room to prove there was no tooth fairy. So I was very skeptical of this stuff at an early age. And to me, God was just another one of those really ridiculous, implausible things. Not to be insulting anyone who did buy into it, because there was probably, my parents told me there was an alligator in a jacuzzi to stop me from getting into it because they didn't want me to drown or something, and I believed that for way too long. So I wasn't totally immune from gullibility, but I didn't believe in God, I didn't believe in Santa Claus, I didn't believe in the Tooth Fairy. These things just immediately struck me as make believe. And actually, I was kind of surprised when I realized that adults literally did believe in God. It was I thought it was just another that's one of those lies they tell us kids. And then when I found out, oh no, they actually believe it. It's whoa, really? It's insane. There's talking snakes and talking donkeys and all kinds of wild stuff's going on. Every animal on Earth fit into a boat. I mean, it's okay, well, that's insane, but all right, cool. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. I had the same kind of early age skepticism. There was never a time when I was religious. There was never a time when I was a believer. In any real sense. If ever I did kind of toy with the notion of God, it was always a very sort of impersonal deist sort of God, maybe. But even then it was I don't really believe that. I just think maybe that's possible. And I guess I still kind of have some sliver of I don't know everything, but just like Occam's razor. I don't think so.
Right. I reference Occam's razor quite a bit. I think that's something that maybe us secular people have in common. It's sort of that thing called using reason to determine things. And that's always the crux of it, is that in order to believe those things, you have to you need to not accept reason. And so I've never really liked that stuff because of that. Reason is a huge thing to me. It's one of my pillars. And so when you're talking about people that don't acknowledge science, or they're cafeteria religious, so you'll believe this part but not this part or this part, I just no.
Right. I mean, I think a certain degree of irrationality can be kind of fun in life. I like to gamble occasionally. I'm not a degenerate constant gambler. Well, I'm a degenerate and a gambler, but not a degenerate gambler. But I mean, I have I like to gamble every now and then. I'll go to the casino probably every couple of months. So maybe 6 times a year, I'll play some roulette, which is the game I like to play. And when I'm playing roulette, I kind of believe, yeah, I got a feeling about this number. I know that's irrational. It's nonsense. There's the board doesn't bend to my whims. I have no ability to predict what will come up. But sometimes oh wow, yeah, I really feel it, and sometimes I'm right. And it's a fun little thing. But you have to contextualize it as I'm having fun. I'm loosening up my ideals a little bit. But when you start basing political decisions on those kind of feelings, or decisions about how to raise your kids or how to interact with your spouse or whatever, I mean, it's it's a dangerous thing, because you can't allow very super irrational things to hold this vice grip on your conduct, on your social interactions, and all these things. It's just like very dangerous.
Yeah.
We're speaking with the Amazing Atheist. When I think about our Constitution, one thing I always try to remind people of constantly, especially people who are, First Amendment absolutists, separation of church and state. And I think that's one of the worst parts of our political discourse today. Obviously, we talk about how the Democratic Party has been co-opted by Wall Street. The GOP has absolutely been co-opted by evangelicals. There is no reason whatsoever that somebody like Pat Robertson should ever be given a place in the political sphere to make his, muses about what he thinks about X, Y, and Z. And yet it's been that way for decades. And so I'd like to think that there probably is a lot of people who share similar sentiments regarding religion, and especially how it has no business in politics whatsoever. But I think a lot of people are afraid to really speak up about it, especially libertarians. Is that something that you've observed?
I mean, it's very difficult when you have institutions like religion that, for some people, it just is such a definitional cornerstone of who they are as people. They base their, family lives around it. They base their political beliefs around it. They base their personal beliefs around it. And it makes sense, I guess, if you're going to believe that there's this all-powerful sort of force that's going to dictate what you should and shouldn't be doing at any given time. Yeah, I mean, of course, you're going to be like, "Whoa, that's really important to me." Like if I believe that, it'd be very important to me too. To some extent, you can't really pull that out of politics if you're going to have a representational democracy, because it's part of the electorate. To me, you have to cut it off at the root, which means it has to be removed from the electorate. You can't do that through force, so you have to do it through trying to make compelling and convincing arguments to people. But in an age of post-truth, I don't know, it becomes ever more difficult, because it seems like people are willing to believe more and more irrational things, not less and less. We thought that, the internet, that's going to bring so many people to reason because they're going to have all this information. Well, they're going to also have all this misinformation too. And reality becomes a choose your own adventure book. And, everybody just believes whatever suits them best. And it's almost become the age of the I God, where it's not the Bible anymore. It's whatever, the Bible of every stupid thing that I've ever collected out of the internet or anywhere else that I've compiled into like this, roughshod belief structure. And if I don't like my principles today, they can change tomorrow. So it's like, I don't know. It seems like religion, it's almost being topped in irrationality by some of these new sort of almost like customizable, personalizable, choose your own adventure book, view of reality sort of people who they're not necessarily, they might pay lip service to God or Jesus or something, but their real God is themselves, which in a certain respect, I don't really disagree with, because I feel like, you're the center of your own universe. You can't avoid that. But to think that you can dictate the truth, to think that reality bends to your whim and that the truth is whatever you want it to be, whatever serves your interest in the moment, that seems to me like the bigger irrationality that's corroding democracy and destroying any sort of even prospect of viable discourse in this country.
Yeah, and that's one of the key things for me about religion, that where I see it's intertwined, because when you're talking about people that believe that, right, that to me is already sort of symptomatic of people that are willing to believe, but I do think overall we've been seeing it decrease, the amount of people that affiliate as religious, the amount of people that are, live their lives in a religious manner. We have seen a decline. I mean, we have seen
especially
that.
the last two generations.
Yeah, sure. I mean, generation. Yeah, we have. But there's still a lot of people, and a lot of newer churches, a lot of those strip mall churches, a lot of it's God-fearing, dictating what your thought process is. It's just more contemporary. It's more contemporary.
Yeah, my fear is that a lot of the religion that exists now might not necessarily be designated as such. You know, like you look at something like QAnon, where you have these people waiting in Dealey Plaza for, you know, John F. Kennedy Jr. to return from the grave and lead them to glory. It's like, okay, well, that seems like maybe that's not rational. That's certainly not a reasonable thing that a person is deriving from an observation of reality. So what is that? That's a religion. You know, that's or at least it's religious thinking.
See, I think
that's an extreme example, but I feel like there's a lot of little subsets of people out there that are, you know, they've got a religion and everything but name. And it's just like, hey, you know, this is what I want in the moment. This is what I need to believe. So this is what I believe. And, you know, they don't necessarily have any arguments to back it up. It's just a matter of faith. And that to me is kind of like where the whole danger comes in. It's like when someone can use, I just believe it, to defend an argument, and that's supposed to be recognized as valid. Like if you bring an argument to someone and they give you like, well, I just have faith, you know, where do you go from there? You know, like if they're not amenable to, they basically just said like, I am not amenable to reason. I am not amenable to evidence. I'm not amenable. Yeah. So like, how do you advance that dialogue from there? That's, I think, like the really difficult question that, you know, I've not figured out the answer to, but I'm still looking.
And I would still be, I would look back at something that happened not too long ago. If you remember, I think it was 12/21/12. There was a sect of Christianity that this like old bony leader guy was like, the world is going to end on 12/21/12 and the rapture will be here and Jesus will walk on water and all this, that, and the other thing. And it didn't happen.
Oh my God.
And I'm thinking there were a lot of people who were getting caught up with this thing, thinking that it was going to happen. And then what happened to dear leader? He went into hiding. And I'm thinking, did he probably just, Jen, there's your cue.
Thank you.
Yeah. Did he probably, did he make off with their money? You know, there was a great Simpsons episode, I'm sure you remember, from, I think it was like 97, 98, The Movementarians, The Joy of Sect. That is one of my all-time favorite Simpsons episodes. And the way that they just lampoon, you know, the hell out of,
Simpsons.
I guess they were doing like it was like that scene out of Airplane where they're going like all the religions in the airport kind of thing. And it just kind of crystallizes that there isn't rational thinking behind religion. I mean, people believe in Scientology, for God's sake, you know, and that one, the more, it seems to me that the more modern a religion gets, the more insane it gets.
No, it's just more unusual to you. See, that's what's interesting to me is when people that are old school religion look at Scientology and they're like, can you believe those people think that? And I'm looking at them and like, yeah, no, where would I believe anybody could think some crazy?
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty wild. I mean, I don't know. I guess I can't properly relate to it, you know, because like I said, I mean, I have my little things where like I might indulge in a little like contextually justifiable sort of irrationality while I'm playing a game of chance or something. But yeah, I don't really understand the people that would base their lives around that. And I mean, when I say I don't understand them, I don't mean I don't intellectually. I don't viscerally understand them on an emotional level. So it's like,
yeah,
you know, so I try to talk to people who have been religious and gotten away from it. You know, people who, but you know, what I typically find is that the people who are like that were just hardcore indoctrinated when they were young. You know, and it was just like a very, you know, you're obliged to believe in this. And, you know, as they grew older, they're like, oh, wait, I mean, there's another option. I don't have to believe in it. But then there's people who kind of just take to it like a duck to water. And I don't know, they seem to be more content to just, oh, rationality. I don't care about that. But I feel like a lot of people who are, you know, religious and then come out of it are people who are kind of like me, who are not really super prone to it and maybe just weren't in that situation where it was shoved into their brains really hard. Like there was people who talked to me about religion when I was growing up, but you know, I didn't have particularly religious parents. They kind of, you know, lip service to God kind of thing, but there was no regular church attendance or anything like that. So I wasn't hardcore indoctrinated into that belief. And so, you know, pretty much as soon as I realized that it was not obligatory, and I dismissed it, and it was pretty a young age. So I guess that I have trouble kind of relating to these people who are religious, and I hear things like, well, they find comfort and all this, and just like, well, you could find comfort in a lot of delusions, right? I mean, like, there's a lot of things you could convince yourself are true that would make you feel very good. Not a good reason to do them. Or maybe it is, because it seems like a lot of people live that way these days. Believe whatever they want to believe.
Yeah. It's interesting. It's not opinions. It's like everybody's opinions is their facts. Like everything is just, yeah.
And I do sympathize with people who are religious, and it is a very important part of their lives. The people that I have a big problem with are the grifters, and there is no limit to how many of them are out there.
Yeah.
And I think that covers a lot of bases, because the religious grifters can be translated into the different types of grifters that you see on social media today. People that say that they're actually trying to help a cause, or they're trying to make something happen, but in reality, they're just trying to get clicks and subscribers and Patreons. They're not really in it for a reason to, forward a cause like we're trying to do.
That's true. But the thing about it is that really like boggles my mind about the whole like grifter thing is, it's a mutual activity. I feel like there's way too many times that the people who are grifted are just absolved. Like, oh, they're just the poor sheep who are being deceived. But that's not really true. They're being openly pandered to. They know they're being pandered to. They know that the second that they push back against any talking point that the demagogue has, the demagogue is either not going to back down and they're going to tear him down and move on to the next one, or he's going to back down the next show and they're all just going to pretend like it never happened. So, I mean, like, there's definitely like this audience out there that just wants to have their own thoughts and feelings said back to them in a way that's a little bit more eloquent than perhaps they could phrase it themselves. And a lot of people, I think, intelligent people, when they realize that, like, hey, if I just tell these people what they want to hear, they will reward me with gigantic sums of money. And I felt that urge at one point. There was a time in my life, it was around 2016, when I was at crossroads because the red wave was happening and I was positioned to ride it if I wanted to. I'd said some lefty or liberal things in the past, but that didn't matter because a lot of people who are now, total right-wing, grifters, we're in that same boat at that same time.
Yeah.
And it was like, okay, well, I can surf this wave because there's clearly like this giant momentum going in this direction right now. In this same space that I'm in, I'm perfectly strategically positioned to ride that, right? And I was like, well, I was genuinely tempted, like, because it's such a amazing financial reward to do it. But I decided ultimately not to. And I lost out on those financial rewards. But I'm still making a living and I feel like happier not having to be full of shit.
You have your
because that to me is like, the price you pay for being a grifter is you have to like be full of shit every single day for the rest of your life. And I was just like, not really worth it to me. But I can see how it is tempting, right? I mean, and like really the audience has to be fucking blamed for a lot of this shit. Because they want it. They want to be pandered to. They want to be lied to. They want to be spoon-fed their own bullshit back to them with a more eloquent and authoritative demagogue fucking voice at the head of the fucking dragon. And it's like, well, you chop off that head of that grifter. Does the grift go away? Do these idiots fucking no? Once again, the root of the problem is these motherfuckers who want to listen to that shit. So they're the problem. The grifter is just the fucking figurehead that they've risen up because he can talk prettier than they can. And if you chop him down, they lift another one up. They're the problem. The grifter is just the figurehead. He's just like a symbol of the mass that he represents. And so, that's why I don't really even get mad at the fucking grifters. It's like a grifter is to me like an empty vessel, just not even a real person anymore. Just like I'm not even someone that's speaking the truth, just like a puppet for a mob. I don't give a fuck about that.
Well, Jen talked about a lot over the course of, when we really started discussing this like a few years back, how, you know, you have this entire movement, the irony of them calling themselves the resistance that happened under Trump. But the reality is, so many of those comfortable liberals, they desire the same thing that people who follow Trump desire, this constant reaffirmation of your beliefs and feeling good about yourself and not actually getting anything done. But people like Pelosi, as you talk about, they're the real sinister people because they want people like Trump in power because it benefits them immensely financially. And that, at the end of the day, is really what drives this. And I'd like to think that especially those that were new to the political wave during the whole Bernie Trump phenomenon in the last 5-6 years, there is sort of this, this I don't want to call it an awakening at this point because that's not what it is, but it's like almost like total consciousness of recognizing the bullshit when it hits you. It's like, oh yeah, I know you're full of it. This ain't real. You're just grifting. This isn't going to help us. And I'm thinking that that's what we really have to be focused on, is how we see through all the shit.
Let me ask you guys about something that kind of I'm curious about, because someone like Nancy Pelosi, you bring her up, she's a great example of it. Now, Nancy Pelosi is super rich. She's already extraordinarily wealthy. Like at a certain point, and she's old. So like at a certain point, like she's super old. She's going to die relatively soon. Here's hoping. She's got, what's that? yeah. Well, yeah.
I'm protecting her.
But no, I mean, like she's super rich, and her life can't get more luxurious than it already is. She's not going to see an improvement in her lifestyle if she gets another $1 million, another $10 million, another $100 million.
Yeah.
It's going to be nothing is really going to change for her. The money that she's accruing at this point is meaningless.
Yep.
In any sort of tangible, real way. So why is she so hungry for more and more and more and more and more and more? She's already got all the power. She's got all the power she'll ever have. She's queen of the universe, basically.
Well, first of all, we're talking about people that I believe have this dark triad of personality traits. I think these are people that are psychopathic. I don't think these are people that use our same sense of logic and reason. And for her, when we talk about making money, I don't mean personally, like having Trump in office. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure she did well, but she always does well. But no, in terms of her fundraising and in terms of what she's able to bring in when they're the minority and they have to worry about the big bad Republican in the White House, her fundraising is off the charts. And because she's the queen of fundraising, that's why she has all the power. She has all the power. And that is why. So it isn't the money personally to her. I mean, like what you said, I mean, that's not it. But she loves being in control of Congress. And that's all she has.
Yeah. And, been in the House chambers. She has, the House Speaker has their own luxurious private office. She's
revered.
She's got like a dozen staffers. She gets like, I think it's like a $4 million travel budget every year.
The thing about it is like all that stuff. I mean, she could have all that stuff and still, and at this point, she's got enough money that she doesn't need to be bought. So it's like she could at least occasionally be like, you know what, for old time's sake, I'm going to stand on some kind of principle here and do something good. Like just for the fuck of it. Like, why not? No, but she never does it. Yeah. I don't know. I don't understand the mentality. I just don't get it.
Well, that's how
just more power. You already got all the power. Yeah. More money. You already got all the money. Like, what are you doing? Why? What is the struggle for more? Like, I get it why most people struggle for more, because most people don't have shit. She's already got it all. So why still this ravenous hunger for more power, more money? It's like, you got it all. You've already got it all.
Psychotic.
I think she holds,
people.
And she holds a lot of contempt for regular people. A lot of people at that level hold massive amounts of contempt for working people. They just do.
She's so elitist.
Don't they kind of almost have to like justify not feeling bad about where they are? Like, you kind of have to, because like if you're living that high on the hog, you kind of have to be like, I am inherently better than the people below me, because otherwise this would be totally unfair. So
that's one of the biggest problems we have with politics in this country, is that we look at those people as leaders and not representatives, and we don't look at them as employees, which they are, and they're incredibly insubordinate. So to me, it's like we put those people in general on this sort of like pedestal, and they get treated like royalty. So it's not just like, if she were to be out of Congress, if she were to be out of the limelight, she'd still be wealthy and she'd probably still have control over certain things. but she wouldn't be constantly in the headlines. She wouldn't constantly be like being revered and being like, you know, talking to little girls like I was the first female Speaker of the House. Like she lives for that kind of like recognition. And it's pathetic, people. These are our employees and they make a lot more money than they should.
They also don't realize how they set women back in the process as well, which is obvious.
I still get confused though, because, you know, like you say, she likes this prestige and this, you know, I was the first. I mean, like, she could have a lot more prestigious of a fucking resume if she actually did something worth a fuck every now and again, right? She could be like, I passed this law. I was, instrumental in doing this thing that helped all these people. Like, that would just be, wow, your legacy's even more incredible, right? So it's like, even if it's just like an ego, like, okay, she's a sociopath, she's a narcissist, dark triad. Okay, but like, wouldn't even that person want to like do something good just for like the sake of like, this is my legacy, this is why I'm an important person in history? You know what I mean? Like, they would want somebody for that reason, like, be greedy for that, because at least that helps somebody, right?
They can't. They just cannot.
When Obamacare was presented, and it was like, I think it was like 1,200 pages, absolutely insanity, how big of a bill it was. And her response was, when asked, you know, how come such a big bill? We have to pass it first before we know what's in it. And I'm just thinking, she really did say that. She really said that. And this whole disconnect from reality, recognizing that she really has that Marie Antoinette thing down to a T. And I think they embrace it. I think guys like Joe Manchin embrace being the bad guy. They embrace that attention.
So would you be interested? We have a story time this evening. We do a segment that we do different story times. And this one, I don't know, you might find it amusing. So would you be interested in like going through a story time with us? Because it's sort of relevant to what we're talking about.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So this is... You have to add to stream.
I will add to stream, but I will first get it set
okay.
up,
So guys, we have what we call story time tonight. And this evening, we're going to be reading a tale out of the Horrors of Washington. And this story in particular, shout out to Carolina Ampudia for sending me the link to this. This is from, what was it? Wales? Only, what's the name?
It's Searching for Whales?
No, it's like Only Whales is the group.
Yeah,
yeah, I'll pull it up. Guys, you have to see this information coming out from what is happening in the Ukraine, of course, and with congressional insider trading. We are now learning about which Congress people have made the most profit in terms of their purchases prior to the war in the Ukraine.
And guess who's number one in the entire congressional delegation? It is none other than Debbie Wasserman Schultz.
It's true, people. She's number one.
And what's even more amazing is that out of the top 25, there are 3 Democrats and 22 Republicans. And Debbie's right at the top, baby. Much like her being a member of ALEC, which was almost like exclusively a Republican organization.
But her license plate on her very high-end chauffeur-driven Beamer is Vote Dem.
Yeah.
So Vote Dem.
And the amount of profit, TJ, that she made off of this deal,
so you want
it was just insane. All right, so you want me to read?
No, go to the thing.
Okay.
This is how you do it. Yeah, so let's look at that.
Debbie Schultz. She can't even fit her whole name on
No,
this.
well, why would you?
So the name of the stock, and it is amazing. It's like a secretariat
Unusual
margin.
Whales, guys. Unusual Whales is the source of this information. So if you want to check it out, it's a really cool organization.
So she bought massive amounts of stock in an organization called Patterson UTI. Now, what is Patterson UTI, Jen? Please share with the audience.
Well, Patterson UTI Energy provides land drilling and pressure pumping services, directional drilling, and rental equipment and technology to clients in the United States and Western Canada.
That's another way of saying hydraulic fracturing, ladies and gentlemen. That's wonderful.
That's the company that she just made her unbelievable profit. And what's the percentage there that she made? Can you see it?
64.14%.
Yes, that was her return.
By an ungodly margin, she is the top recipient, over 22% higher than the next person closest. That is amazing.
Yeah, it is.
It really is.
And
And
very
one of
impressive.
one of the worst GOPers, obviously we know about Marjorie Taylor Greene, TJ, but of course, Tommy Tuberville. He was the member of the GOP delegation that came out and said, almost to the effect of, well, if we didn't have the opportunity to trade on inside information, a lot of us wouldn't be in Congress anyway. Well, the damn right you wouldn't be, because what would you be there for? You mean to serve people? God damn, who would have ever thought?
In this case, Debbie and her dependent child purchased up to $45,000 in Patterson UTI Energy stocks on January 20th.
Yeah, about 3 weeks before the invasion. So coincidental.
So coincidental.
Look at all of Virginia Fox is all over this thing too.
Yeah,
Like she's listed like several times here in these top lists. Like
these are by purchase. So Debbie's is the largest individual purchase, but because Lois Frankel is one of the other Democrats, and she's a South Florida Democrat, and she's on here multiple times as well.
I don't even know who Virginia Fox is, but she has got so many of these. It's like insane.
So does Tommy. Tommy's got a handful.
Yeah, he's got
Marjorie
I see his name appearing like 3 or 4 times. Yeah, 3 times.
Marjorie Taylor Greene's got quite a few there too.
Yeah, she's got a few too.
Yeah, they at least
this is just like, oh, it's amazing. Like right before all these oil stocks skyrocket upwards, these guys know about it. I'm sure it has nothing to do with them being like serving senators and Congress people and stuff, though. I mean, it's like, oh yeah, they just lucky guess, you know. What's
amazing to me is that in 2021.
This is like if I could control if I could literally control what number the roulette wheel lands on, but I'm still allowed to bet. You know?
Yes.
It's ridiculous. Like, how can you possibly justify that?
Yeah, and yet Pete Rose can't get into the Hall of Fame.
Yeah,
and Martha
seriously.
Stewart had to be incarcerated. If I were Martha Stewart,
At this point in this crooked ass country, it should be called the Pete Rose Hall of Fame. Okay. Like, you know, he should be the shining example because this is the most American story of all. And at this point.
Right.
And what's even more amazing is that in the year 2021, where a lot of this was going down, there were 59 members of Congress that violated the Stock Act, broke the law. And of course, Debbie was one of them.
Well, they're all in jail now, though.
Oh, of course. There's always accountability.
They've all been locked up. So
there's always accountability.
Okay.
Have you seen all the accountability for all the war crimes that we've had over the past few administrations? Have you noticed all that accountability?
I remember when George W. Bush was executed publicly for his war crimes. So that was a great day. American history. I was like, wow, justice has been done.
Dick Cheney as a consolation first and foremost, but you know.
He was just rehabilitated as a great Democrat because he didn't.
Yeah, Dick Cheney's an American hero. How dare you?
He's an American hero. He didn't support the January 6th insurrection, so he's a true Democrat.
TJ,
he's a true blue American hero. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. TJ, remember when one of the biggest grifting groups of all time, the Lincoln Project, showed a picture of Dick Cheney with a mask on and said, "Welcome to the resistance." I was like, oh my God, they will try. And perhaps succeed in some ways. I mean, Rick Wilson, Steve Schmidt. I mean, they will rehab anybody as long as it is within the confines of the DC swamp. And what I don't think a lot of people understand, whether it is Debbie, whether it is Pelosi, any of this, they don't understand that as much as people hate Trump, they hate this shit even more. That is what I don't think people fail to understand. It's not that Trump isn't corrupt. Of course he is. He just does it in broad daylight and he doesn't give a shit. But so many of them do the exact same thing. And I think people are just sick of the hypocrisy. How do you see it?
Well, I think you're totally right about that. The reason, I mean, like the GOP has put forth progressively more ineloquent, insane sort of politicians for a while now. And yet they've remained competitive. And you have to ask yourself, like, you look at from Reagan to like Trump, it's like, here's Reagan. I mean, they're not all that different in terms of like the kind of policy positions that they hold. But like Ronald Reagan was an eloquent speaker. He had, some ability to fucking come across like a statesman. Trump is like, monosyllabic. So how is this party continue to be competitive? And the reason they've continued to be competitive is because you got these people who are like, they don't have
it's really great. Well, it's really great that you asked, TJ, because I'll tell you why. It's because we're making America great again. So you just have to kick back and enjoy.
I love this narrative I heard too from Trump the other day, where he was like, everything was great, but just in like the last few months, it's all falling apart. Open borders and all this stuff has happened. I'm like, wow, he just doesn't even say things that resemble the truth. He just says whatever he wants. And they're like, yeah, that's the new truth. It's like, oh my God.
But do you think maybe that's a reflection in how society is just really falling apart and people?
Oh my God, yeah. I think people are just desperate. And
not him, it's them. That's the problem, is that he can exist like that and people tolerate it.
Think about it. If we were living in a society that
one of the reasons people tolerate it too is, like you said, the Democrats are so uninspiring. You just like, people just know, like, they're not going to do anything for us. They're not going to do anything for us. They're not going to give us a fucking table scrap. Like, the best they can do is like, we won't actively attack certain minorities the way the Republicans do.
Right.
That's what you get from us.
Right.
It's like, so wait, the only thing you've got is that you're not going to be as actively evil on every front. That's right. There's some fronts where we're just going to be neutral. It's like, you got my fucking vote. Wow, what an inspiring fucking figure.
Perfect example that we can give you, being in the limp wiener Sunshine State. All anybody wants to talk about is how much they hate DeSantis because they know he's coming. And on top of that, they spent all of their energy focused on the Don't Say Gay bill. Now, that's not to say that it doesn't have relevancy. That's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is that the bill that should have been getting all of the attention is the anti-solar bill that they just passed on behalf of the energy monopoly here in the state of Florida.
Who wrote the legislation?
That, of course, is Florida Power and Light, which is owned by NextEra Energy, which owns the Dakota Access Pipeline. Everything is connected when you really look underneath the hood of the car.
Well, and this is the problem when you have two parties that are both beholden to the same business interests that have to pretend like they're oppositional, right? So,
Seriously.
Like, that's the only thing they have left to fight about is these little social issues. So I mean, like, I'm not saying it's not like this. I'm not saying the social issues aren't important, but like the reason that all that other shit falls by the wayside is because like neither of them, they both serve the same interest on that one. So
in the Panhandle, maybe the reddest part of the whole state, certainly one of the two or three, is FP&L is very toxic there. Because the last time a hurricane hit, they were horrifically bad, and they know that an energy monopoly doesn't work. They want alternative energy. Even in very rural conservative areas, they are about protecting the environment. That's the misnomer no one wants to talk about.
It's true.
So the 3 state senators that represented that area voted no on the FP&L bill. And you would think, oh, okay, well, then I guess the bill's not going to pass. Well, hold on there, baby. We'll have 3 Democratic senators that'll step in and save the day.
Yeah.
So it's a game. And I just wish more and more people would wake up when they're like, oh, it's just Senator Sinema and Senator Manchin. I'm like, you can't be this stupid.
Here's the problem with that. You could tell, you go on the street and say to 100 people, like, hey, is this you could describe that exact situation. Like, hey, is this the way it works? Is it all a game? Is it all rigged? Yeah, pretty much. And I feel like everyone would acknowledge, I think like almost everyone would fucking acknowledge that if you just talk to people about it. But does our awareness of that actually change anything? Doesn't seem like it really does. It seems like, the people can talk about the politicians not taking action, but as far as I can tell, the people ain't really taking any fucking action either. So it seems like everyone's kind of content to just bitch, myself included. I'm not exempting. So I don't know. I mean, it feels like, if we really wanted to hold these motherfuckers accountable, it could be done. But there just doesn't seem like it's the willpower in the electorate. So until the people of this country actually give enough of a shit, I don't see. I mean, like, and it seems like whenever there is a populist sort of like movement in this country, somehow it's subverted into something else. It just finds, oh well, it fizzled out. Oh, Bernie, he loves Biden. Everyone loves Biden. It's all Biden now, And then it's all just like there, put it there. And then hey, populist, movement. Oh wow, we're gonna defy the government. Wow, what are we doing? Oh, we don't like the masks. It's like, what? That's the issue. We're gonna like, that's the moment we're gonna be like, oh, that's when we're gonna fight.
That's
okay.
the hill you're gonna
fuck
die
me.
on.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, like, can you save people that are not willing to? It's like if the invading fucking horde of monsters is coming and everyone's just like, well, like that movie, the fucking asteroid is coming to the Earth.
Don't look
right.
up.
And everyone's just like, well, fuck that. And they're all arguing, I don't believe it. And then the business interests get involved and they're like, we let the asteroid come closer so we can mine it. And then the whole Earth fucking is destroyed. Sorry, spoiler alert. And
it just feels like
I don't know. I'm frustrated with the populace of this country. I mean, where there's a lot of focus on the leaders, everybody's corrupt, this and that, and the grift. It's like the grifters and the leaders and the commentators and this person, that person. It's all figureheads. It's like maybe like someone should be looking at the people and saying like, these are the fucking assholes that are the fucking problem. Like our neighbors and our friends and everybody around us. That's like who's doing this. It's not like the big evil monster on the hill, like ha ha ha, because everyone knows that's there, and no one's fucking like, let's go slay the fucking dragon. So I don't know.
Yeah. What kind of stuff have you been covering lately? Like, what have you been talking about on your show?
I mean, I've been so paralyzed in terms of even figuring out what kind of content to do on my channel that I don't really. I've been writing a book, like a novel, so I've been focusing a lot on that. And I do a podcast called Deep Fat Fried, where we just kind of talk about little, nuggets of history and culture and stuff like that. Haven't really been getting too much into this like sphere of things outside of maybe tweeting some stuff here and there.
Good for you. Where do you live? Can I ask, like, what state are you in?
Louisiana.
Well, I was just at this wonderful Obama Roosevelt gala on Saturday, and none other. This is who they decided to wheel out as their guest speaker.
The keynote.
Former representative of your state, Cedric Richmond, Mr. Fracking Oil Maniac himself.
That was the keynote speaker.
I was in his presence. I couldn't even say hi to him. I couldn't even look at him. I'm just like, you know what? You have used identity and everything in between to be able to get away with this BS, and you have left so much in your wake representing Louisiana.
We had a congressperson too recently that got like really destroyed on Twitter for saying some really just like insane statement that didn't even mean anything. Do you guys remember what I'm talking about? The dictionary, like literally like the dictionary went to them and was like, we're the dictionary and we don't even understand what this guy's talking about. Like the dictionary.com account. What was that guy?
He was in the South. I don't remember.
No, he was one of the parishes in Louisiana. He's another Louisiana politician.
Yeah, he's in the GOP. I can tell you that much. And he made up some like insane thing about how the youth, and was more or less just saying how you guys are the reason why this, that, and the other thing. And then the dictionary Webster or whatever comes in.
Dictionary.com. Yeah.
I hesitate.
I figured out. It's Rep. Clay Higgins.
Clay Higgins.
Clay Higgins. He said you millennial leftists you millennial leftists who never lived one day under nuclear threat can now reflect upon your woke sky. You made quite a non-binary fuss to save the world from intercontinental ballistic tweets. And everyone's just like,
what does that mean?
What did he say? Like that was just not one, but two just absolute gibberish sentences.
So maybe he has a mental health situation going on.
Yeah, and like that's an elected representative in my state, so I mean,
well, that would be par for the course. I mean, honestly, there's a lot of them that I think have issues. But
there is one gentleman who is running in your state right now, Gary Chambers, who is.
I'm a big Gary Chambers supporter. I like Gary Chambers.
He's definitely all about the cannabis.
Donated a little money to his campaign.
Do you have recreational cannabis there?
No, absolutely not. No.
Not when you have a senator like John Kennedy.
There's some medicinal here, but that's as far as it goes here.
That's same here, and I'm just always curious, like which states are as backwards as ours, and apparently. And you know what? Wouldn't you think that in Louisiana you would get a little bit of that French heritage? I mean, you guys are Napoleonic code. I would think maybe
we're the only state with parishes, so that's I don't know. I mean, obviously, if you go to New Orleans, it's a very different sort of atmosphere. But I mean, Louisiana's got a lot of different little subcultures that are here and there. A lot of it's very like I don't know what you call these pseudo rednecks. like nouveau
Duck
riche
Dynasty?
pseudo rednecks. Like they drive around in pickup trucks and support Trump, but they're actually like super like rich, and they keep
Duck
their trucks
Dynasty.
really nice and stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Duck
I don't-
Dynasty. Guys like guys
Yeah,
like that.
the Duck Dynasty fake rednecks. Yeah,
Yeah.
the Duck Dynasty guys. It's like a bunch of people like that.
Yeah, because it turns out that even though they had the ZZ Top thing going on like you did, they're actually very wealthy guys, and you would hang out at like country clubs and stuff like that. And everyone thought that these guys were just laid back with the duck whistle.
I've had a few very bizarre Louisiana experiences that were unrelated, but like I've never had anything but the most fun in that state. That's all I can tell you. Like the experiences have varied from the not legal all the way to like I can't even tell you, and yet always fun there. First
Oh yeah, I mean, there's
no
a lot
one
of
knew
fun
the
to be had,
drinking age.
especially if you're like in the New Orleans area, particularly. Yeah.
Yeah, nobody knew the drinking age. I was there. I want to say I was 18 or 19 at the time. And we would go into bar. Nobody carded us. Nobody knew the drinking age. Nobody cared. There was open.
Yeah, and the other thing is like they're notorious for, most places kind of like watered down a lot of their, especially like you're talking about a tourist area, but they really like put insane amounts of liquor into every drink. So they're really like aiming to fuck you up as much as possible. They want you to leave shit faced for sure.
Oh, and for anyone who's ever been in New Orleans and you ever stayed in the French Quarter, every morning they're hosing down the sidewalks and the streets every morning because of vomit. And it's
piss.
like,
don't forget piss.
Yeah, it's not just vomit. It's all sorts of stuff. But like, yeah, every morning, weekday, weekend, they're out first thing in the morning hosing down the streets and the sidewalks.
Mm-hmm.
That was one of the first things that I noticed. And then I would also say, and I've been to Shreveport and Bossier, which is a very bizarre place. I don't know if you know the area. Are you familiar?
Passingly, yeah.
So I'm driving through there, and this was with a boyfriend at the time, and we go to get a hotel just to crash, and there was some sort of convention that was going on, and so there wasn't a lot available, and we end up in what he calls a short and curly, but you know what I'm saying. Like, and this place had like only porn on the channel. That's the first part. That's not what bothers me, okay? But then you'll appreciate this. Outside the window is this van with a megaphone driving around shouting Bible verses at like on like a bullhorn. So we're like in the porn hotel, and it was like the juxtaposition of the whole thing was so hilarious to me. Like I think
that story actually is the story of Louisiana that you just told.
Yeah, basically New Orleans.
I think that story should end with, and then the state of Louisiana was founded at that moment.
That's what Shreveport Bossier said he felt like. It was this.
No, being in a seedy motel with only porn on the TV while there's a man in a van circling around screaming Bible verses through a megaphone is the very definition of the character of Louisiana.
Oh my God, that's really funny. And I will say, also close to that area is a town called Pinewood. My best friend from college, her grandparents are from there. They were first cousins. So that's my other knowledge of that area, part of Louisiana.
Yeah, well, what Louisiana is as Louisiana does, right?
Yeah.
I think a good topic to close on, obviously, is right now we see what's going on in Ukraine and Russia, and we can see how there's this. We are so divided right now that it's almost like, even in circumstances where it would seem kind of obvious, one belligerent doing what they're doing, not such a good thing, that there's always these teams, these sides, justification for one is doing what the other is doing. And we obviously talked about, the grifters and the self-fulfilling prophecies and all that. What would you say would be one of the keys to ultimately bridging the divide? Because we are in a very dangerous place as a society right now. I really believe that. And I think that we're at each other's throats all the time. And this is getting even worse because we're seeing the censorship, and particularly liberals, they welcome the censorship, and it just gets worse and worse and worse. And then you put these, individuals underground, and it gets even worse in that respect. What would you, TJ, you're in charge, you're making decisions right now.
That's a bad idea.
Yeah,
don't do that. You're not going to like it. It's going to be weird. No, but look on that issue. Obviously, I'm, don't take me too seriously. I'm not a foreign policy expert or anything like that. but I am an observer of the psychology of my fellow Americans, right? And I've seen how they are, how they function. And I remember the closest parallel I can think of is the invasion of Iraq. In the Bush administration and the sort of attitudes that permeated the country then, because I feel like there was a very similar push at that time to conform to a certain line or a certain narrative, and questioning that really was not welcome. And I think that you kind of have a situation where you're in that thing again. And it's like any sort of dissent is interpreted as the maximum amount of dissent. It's like, you say one crossword or ask one question that's like a little bit too much for people, and maybe they presume that you're like so on this other side, and there's like this thing where it's like, oh, we got to galvanize the sides and stuff. And I have a pretty nuanced position on it. Do I think Russia is the aggressor in the situation? Yes. Do I think that we did things to provoke them? Yes. Do I think they did things to provoke us? Yes. You could probably find a chain of provocations that go back into fucking infinity. So, like, who's to blame? Everybody. We're all living on this planet together, right? So, as far as who's at fault, I almost don't care. But like, is Russia the aggressor in this situation? Yes. Have they gone too far? Yes. Should we be having people in this country that are like removing Russian cheese from display cases and Russian vodka off the shelves and canceling Tchaikovsky and it's like insanity.
Yeah. You see that?
And the Tolstoy thing on Netflix got canceled. Yeah. It's like, oh yeah, Tolstoy, notorious warmonger or whatever the fuck. It's like, okay. So yeah, I don't know. There's been like a lot of ridiculousness. Hey doggy, how you doing? But there's like been a lot of fucking ridiculous bullshit that's been going on. And, as far as bridging the divide goes, the question, how do you bridge the divide? I mean, you can't bridge a divide until the people on either side of the divide want there to be a bridge. And I don't think you're at that point yet. So until there's an actual willingness in the country for that divide to be bridged, I don't think you're going to see it. Right now, it seems like a lot of people are invested in maintaining the divide. So as long as there's more people invested in maintaining it than there are building it, I don't see how you build it.
You hit the nail on the head, TJ.
Invested.
It is too lucrative for too many people right now to not be divided. All you have to do is this is like all Roger Stone's idea from years ago, which is you only need 50.1% of the vote. And if that means you have to piss off the other 49.9% in order to make it so, hey, if it pays or if it bleeds, it leads.
But I agree with you. And I've been saying all along, like, this is completely nuanced. And I also am very hesitant to trust the information that we're getting on both sides. I think both countries have wag the dog mentalities going on. I think there's a lot of other factors, and I'm against the war because I'm against the war.
Right. I mean, propaganda does tend to, wartime propaganda is the most notorious time for extraordinary propaganda. So it's definitely useful to question that.
It's funny, thanks to you. Every time I see one of these crazy stories, like the Ukrainians on the island that apparently went down in a blaze of glory, I just think of Shu from Wag the Dog.
It's all
like this is all. If anybody,
and there is really bad things happening.
Yes, absolutely. But ginning up support for war is great for the military-industrial complex.
It's so profitable.
It's great for our congresswoman who literally profits off of this. I've always said, and anyone who is a Politico knows who Debbie Wasserman Schultz is. Most of them affiliate her with what happened in the 2016 primary and how she was clearly in the tank for Hillary against Bernie. But her foreign policy record is horrifically bad. Like
neocon bad.
Like neocon bad. Like, this is a person who has been calling Juan Guaido the president of Venezuela for a while and has been demanding regime change there too. So that's the type of stuff that we have to deal with down here. And why do it? Because it pays very well. Yeah. And that, at the end of the day, is the motivator for so many people. And that separation, we talked about the separation of church and state, but the whole separation of public service, which is what representation is supposed to be, versus a lucrative career, which is what almost everyone who is on Capitol Hill has made it out to be.
Correct.
That's what we're really trying to change here. And I think we can all, as a unified front, agree that that is something that has to change.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people do agree on that. It's unfortunate that there's so many other things they disagree on that kind of keep them from taking action on that front. I mean, that's partly by design and partly just by like the happenstance of how human tribes organize themselves. But I do kind of feel like there's an important conversation that we all have to have with, our fellow citizens in this country. That, if we really want these issues to move forward, we have to get more on the same page with one another and ignore the politicians, so that we can actually come to a sort of maybe some sort of consensus or compromise amidst the people, at least provisionally, until we can get these motherfuckers back under our control instead of the other way around.
That's a very good point.
Yeah.
Yeah, they are our employees after all.
From where? Victoria Newland is quivering with joy that we're fighting them over there so we don't have to fight them over here.
Yeah.
Recycled scraps from Iraq, by the way. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, they can't, and I'll say it now, I'm against the next war. I'm already against that war. So I've never been in favor of
We'll
this.
never know. We might be invaded by aliens or something, and then
I'm still not in favor of that. I'd rather go with them.
I think we should fight. Well, maybe you're right. Actually, good point.
I don't know. And let me tell you, I've always resented how, and this was me more growing up, about how aliens were portrayed in movies, with the exception of like E.T. It was always extremely negative, and I always really bothered me. Like I always felt like we were almost being like, earthist, like very kind of like, why would we assume that other people, other species would want to hurt us? Because that would be our priority, because that's what we would do. That doesn't mean that
we're projecting. Yeah.
Right? Like, why would we assume that their purpose would be to hurt us and come? Like, why would you assume that? Because that's how you think. But in advance, I would just think anybody that could come and see us, they're so far advanced. For like, why would they have any interest in our ridiculousness? Like, I don't see what we would have to offer them. That was always my thought.
And I also think that one of the probably best places to close, we're just thinking about how everyone is trying to wrap their heads around what's going on right now. Everything is always planned way in advance. And so Putin obviously was waiting for his moment. And this is something that obviously had multiple layers to NATO expansion for sure, but also a weak point of the United States. The thing that I don't think anyone in our country realizes is that if you spend 5 years basically saying that the head of Russia is responsible for Hillary Clinton not being president, that our president was a Manchurian candidate, that you gin up all of this Russophobia over and over again, nonstop, to an insane level, to the point where people like Malcolm Vance are writing books about it and making millions of dollars as a result. What the hell do you think a dictator with a chip on his shoulder is going to do when they have an opportunity to stick it to us really good? That to me is why I cannot and will not ever get into debates or conversations with people who think they have any clue whatsoever about foreign policy, because they know nothing. They really don't. The American public is completely illiterate in almost every way regarding what the State Department allows you to know and what it doesn't allow you to know.
And yet we mock China in that regard. Like, they're so authoritarian. They've got state-controlled media, and I'm listening to people that are reporting back what they hear on CNN.
Like, what the hell do you think you have here in the United States? And at the end of the day, you may think it's okay to poke the bear with Russia because our economy is not attached to them regarding, their country and obviously Ukraine. But what are you going to do when China decides that Taiwan is part of China? And that's coming. And you better believe that our country ain't going to do dick about it, because thanks to me, back in 1993, I decided to pass NAFTA and normal trade relations with China. And you can thank me and my wife, Hillary, for the reason why our country is screwed. And it's true. Our country's screwed. So we really do have to get past this bullshit, as you said, TJ. And I think the more we have these conversations, even though we can't agree on everything, we can agree on the primary stuff, which is what I think will ultimately get us there. We just have to stop worrying about the stupid bullshit.
I agree.
Thank you so much for coming on. It was so nice to meet you. I'm sorry my troll bothered you, although I'm glad you got a super chat from it.
Yeah, $10 is
Yeah.
only good.
It's pretty good.
I am very
I wish every troll would give me $10.
Well, she's not your troll. She's my troll.
She only did it for you because she's blocked from our channel. We
We blocked her.
She started harassing people in the chat, and that was like, all right, that's a no-no. You can't do that. What are you working on? What do you want to plug? Anything before you go?
Something deep fried. Put it in.
Yeah, I'm doing a Deep Fat Fried. That's a YouTube channel. We do podcast. It's basically an educational podcast for the uneducated by the uneducated. We look at various aspects of history, culture, fast food, any topic we desire. We just deep fat fry it. So you can check us out there. My channel is The Amazing Atheist. Hopefully uploads will become a regular thing again in the future at some point, but I just haven't, I don't know, not been inspired on that. Writing a book called Sex Bot Uprising. That's going to be coming out hopefully this year. And yeah, that's me. Thanks.
Will you come back when it comes out?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because then I'll want to talk about it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
for sure. And I'll read it. Like I love to read the stuff and then have everybody on and talk about their stuff.
Would you come back and potentially do a panel if we have a few people on? I'd love to do a panel. My ideal panel, TJ, would be you, Shu, and Vosh. Basically, get you three at the same time on the podcast. I think that would be the ultimate conversation. Jen?
Yeah, I mean, that's too much star power.
I think we can do it.
I
think we can.
That's a lot of
it would
people.
help. Well,
we appreciate it so much. Thanks for giving us your time.
Thank you.
Take care, brother.
Bye-bye.
So I would say that
he was lovely.
We have these conversations and it becomes clear, as far as I can tell, that so much of, you know what, if we got everybody, you know what, even if we got you-know-who on.
There's so many people that I want, but who are you talking about? Oh, I wouldn't.
But even if we did, it's, well, you know what, maybe he's a bridge too far.
But here's the thing, what I do appreciate is for anybody who knows, like, I won't smoke on air with a guest unless it's somebody that I know it's cool or they whatever. So anytime that a guest pulls out and lights up, it's always going to be a win for me, because then I feel at ease to do so, because otherwise I won't. Like I will when it's just you and me, but I wouldn't do it with a guest because I kind of think it's rude if they're not, you know. I wouldn't sit here and drink with them partaking either. So yeah,
that's fair. Yeah, smoking
you know
is different than drinking.
Well, it is, but I wouldn't want anybody to feel uncomfortable about it. Like it wouldn't occur to me to like blaze up in front of Tom Hartman.
I guess we could try to get her on as kind of like a ruse type situation. That would be a lot more funny. But I am going to share a story. I think I need that.
All right, but I need to add it. You always wait until I've been like on it for like a while, and then I've got to. All right, I got to load. I'll load.
So normally this would be the pontificating with Pete moment, but Jen is going to be here.
But I think I've probably already heard this pontification.
Thank you, Hypnotic Visionaire. We appreciate you checking us out. Please subscribe, hit the like button, check out some more of our videos. We are
please share us.
We're all about sifting through the bullshit. We don't have any time for the tribalism crap.
No,
we're pretty much willing to talk. We're pretty much willing to talk to anybody.
Willing to talk to anybody who names their show The Amazing Atheist is already going to have my support. You know what I'm saying? I have a picture of Christopher Hitchens in my office. So
I need to do this because of what
he's about to share with us
Saturday.
Okay.
And after learning what I learned about my congresswoman today, this is just, this is as bad as it gets.
So this is what happened. So Peter went to the Obama-Roosevelt dinner.
Why is that doing that?
I don't know. It's talking to me. But so Peter went to the Obama-Roosevelt dinner, which is our Broward Democratic Executive Committee's, annual fancy schmancy dinner. They had it at the Signature Grand, which is not like a particularly fancy place. I got married there. I mean, it's a big hall.
Told you already, I'm fancy.
But the cost of the tickets is outrageous. Okay, it was like $400. This is the local Democratic club, the Vote Dem on my high-end Beamer.
So let me give you all the intro.
I was not there, as I would not attend said function.
So if you thought that
if
you thought that it was offensive to charge so much money to just attend an event, well, guess what? The drinks were not complimentary. You had to pay for the drinks too.
They had cash bar?
Mhm.
That's so tacky.
They sure did.
Especially given the amount of money Debbie takes from big alcohol. You would think that maybe they would
Yeah, they
like,
might have like a full spread out
I
there
would
for
think
her,
that
make
they
such
could
a
at
nice
least throw
profit.
together a bar situation.
Yeah, they weren't going to do that.
But the thing that bothers me the most about this whole concept, I want to be very clear, because anybody out here, especially if you're a patron that sends money to us, all of the money that comes into our stuff.
We would never use your money in
No, I just want to be clear. All of the money that comes in through generational change goes directly into GenCorp and directly into that account, which is our 501c4. And that money is used for service and endorsing issues and candidates that we like. And we would never spend our money to go to that function because it's disgusting.
No.
Peter was given a ticket.
I got invited. And I got to tell you, if you want to know how badly the Democrats are going to take it in the midterms, this event was sort of emblematic of where it's going and how it's going to go. Look, there's some nice people there. This was not an event where,
get to the good stuff.
you know, you have...
Yes, I know. I just don't want people not to realize that there's good stuff coming.
So, you know, Rebecca Jones came down from the Panhandle, and you know she's nice. I appreciate her enthusiasm, but she's not up by 3 points against Matt Gaetz in that district. Unless Gaetz is going down, I mean, literally going down, it's going to be almost impossible.
Why do you think that?
Because it's a plus 25.
Oh, what do you mean she's
district.
up 3? What do you mean?
They did a poll recently that says that she's up 3 points.
Who did a poll?
I'm not sure.
Exactly.
But the point
Exactly.
is, Rebecca's good people, and
Absolutely.
you know, I think she's fighting on the right issues, and I think a number of other people that were fighting on good issues. Finally met Mike Gellin. He was there. Very nice guy.
I like him.
Yeah,
He's city commissioner in Tamarack.
Running
He's
for
one of the
mayor.
really good guys.
Running for mayor of Tamarack, non-corporate, supports us. We support him. I believe Stephen Meza may be running for city commission in his seat, which would be cool. Stephen Meza was also there. Great guy. Elijah Manman, he was there. Great guy. My friend Ken, who is, we'll just say, pretty influential. But, you know, it was also a who's who type of event with a lot of the people that, you know, you normally would affiliate with sort of the Dem establishment, if you will.
I can imagine.
And, of course, the one person who was there who I was not thrilled to see, but ultimately you have to meet them and converse with them as you need to. And that, of course, was Dan Reynolds. He is the head of the Broward County AFL-CIO. He's probably as responsible for Debbie's protection and politically as anybody. You know, I didn't really, we had like a brief second where we interacted with each other. I took a really good photograph with our friend Ted Victor.
Do you think he knew who you were?
No, I don't think he does.
Like, well, I don't know. Like, we've called him out
did.
multiple times on multiple shows by name.
Yeah, but the guy's like 70 years old. I don't think he pays any attention to
It
stuff
isn't.
like
All it would take
this.
is somebody else to forward it to get to Debbie, and then it would get to him.
That's probably true.
That's
But
all.
it's
No,
true.
I know. I don't think he'd be following
Well,
it.
it's not like we've done anything against Dan. Dan has simply broken legitimate charter rules within the union to protect Debbie.
He's one of the reasons we can't have nice things.
That is for sure. That's absolutely indisputable. And
It's that
so,
simple. He continuously endorses and props up a candidate that supported fast tracking the TPP.
I will tell
And
you
he's the head of
that
labor.
I will tell you that there were two people that spoke that were really good. That, of course, is retiring congressional representative Ted Deutsch. So sort of his last hurrah. He's you know, I can see why he's popular. There's no reason to doubt that.
Deutsch is a nice guy.
Yeah, decent guy. And of course, Sheila Scherfelis McCormick, new Congresswoman, District 20, and a friend. She was great.
Yeah.
She did a really great job. She had a moment with Alcee Hastings' daughter. She presented her with this commemorative plaque with like a letter and his image, and she was just completely stunned. She did not see that coming. And I said to my friend Ryan, who's there, Ryan Morales is running for the Agriculture Commissioner position of Florida. I just said, that's Sheila. That's what Sheila does. She does things that you wouldn't expect. And kudos to her. And hopefully she's going to win re-election. We'll see what happens there. Mr. Holmes did not show up, but he had signs outside. And It seemed to me that over the course of the evening, people were not being polite. People were kind of being put to sleep in many ways by a lot of the speakers.
Can you blame them?
I could tell you right now that the nominee for governor will be Charlie Crist. It will take an absolute miracle for it not to be. He's certainly the most capable in terms of the stump and the connecting with people one-on-one as the three candidates that are running.
Let me ask you, did they allow the other Democratic candidates for senator to speak? Or is it?
No, Val was not there. None of the senatorial candidates were at the event.
Interesting.
Which I thought was interesting as well.
Interesting. So it's almost like they knew if they invited her, they'd have to include them. So they just decided to keep that one out.
Now, the problem is, and this is something
Oh
that
my
I
God.
didn't realize, is that the event was only supposed to be from 6 to 9. And this is the Signature Grand. This is a place where people typically have weddings. They have different types of events.
Yeah.
Well, there was a Middle Eastern wedding going on in the adjacent room. And let me tell you, when that techno music starts bouncing up and down, you can hear it right through the walls, baby. And there is, if somebody's at the podium and they're speaking,
Nobody's listening.
you can barely hear it.
They have nothing good to talk about. That's the reality. They're uninspired and they have nothing good to talk about. So the only people that are remotely decent are people that happen to be engaging speakers and are just pleasant. But otherwise, they don't have good speeches because they have nothing.
And I can say that very specifically for Nikki Fried. Her speech is so robotic. There's no emotion that's driven from it. It's completely rehearsed. And all I'm thinking is, if you're really sliding like you are at this point, and Charlie is clearly going to take it, and this isn't anything against Ryan, I support him and I like him, but if there's going to be any semblance of a fight in terms of a ticket, Nikki should be running for re-election of the Commissioner of Agriculture position, but she's not doing it. And again, it's emblematic of where the party is and how much it's disintegrated and how it doesn't have juice. There is no enthusiasm. And you can get up on that bullhorn and scream about how much you hate DeSantis. All I can tell you is that if DeSantis did a rally, if he did an event, a dinner, if you will,
oh my God,
there would be thousands of people in the room. They would all be hooting and hollering and cheering him on, and the enthusiasm would be through the roof. That is the big difference. And who, more than anybody else, but you have a guest speaker, Cedric Richmond, former congressional candidate from Louisiana, who now works in Obama's, I think he's in his cabinet. And
Obama.
Biden, they're all one and the
Well, I
same.
just thought maybe you meant he worked for the personal employment of our former president in his $14 million Martha's Vineyard.
That probably be a better job
Maybe
anyway.
that's one of his.
But no, that's not what he was doing.
Okay.
What he is doing is he's working for the president, and he's basically like a PR person for the president. Let's put it that way. And
Oh, well, that's nice.
but this is a gentleman who was a congressional representative who was as knee deep in the oil and fracking industry as anybody in the country, regardless of party. And this is the person that you have as your keynote speaker.
You do when the person putting the entire event together just made 60-something% from a fracking company.
And that leads us to the final point
As
of
if
this.
she has nothing to do with
this
event.
pontification, if you will, of the event itself. That all comes back to our Congresswoman, Debbie Wasserman Schultz.
Wasserman Schultz. I can't with her.
I can listen to everybody speaking at the event, but I cannot listen to her. I actually had to walk out of the room and have a conversation with her. And by the time our 15-minute phone conversation was done, I walked back into the room and Debbie is still talking.
Oh my God.
Still talking.
He texted. She's still talking.
And she's not talking about anything.
That's what's so amazing. The length of time.
Democrats, can I get a yeah? Can I get a cheer?
It's the amount of time she can go on without saying anything of substance is fascinating to me. It's really, and she's not like engaging as a speaker. Like she's just very unwarm. It's honestly, if she didn't have the power and the influence that she does, where she actually did things that hurt people, like if she didn't have that, I would really feel sorry for her.
I think a lot of people do. And
no, most people are scared of her.
Well, I think
which is
they're scared for
hilarious.
sure.
People, she is very small. She's very troll-like. She's like little, not hobbit. She's little. There's nothing to be scared of.
But that wasn't the end. The end was she ended up speaking a second time. which is incredible. Why was she speaking twice?
She's like mini Hillary.
But it's like, it's my party and I'll cry if I want to. And that's basically what it was like.
And it's her party.
Yeah, and everybody is leaving. I mean, people were literally leaving early because they didn't want to listen anymore. They had enough. And so that in its...
So it was supposed to go to 9.
Yeah.
And what time do you think people left?
Well, they were leaving at like 9:15, 9:30.
Oh.
But there were still important, issues at bar that needed to be dealt with. And of course, there are good people that are involved. They're just not willing to stand up and do what is necessary. And another thing that I found out, and I will not name any names, but one thing I can absolutely assure you of regarding Debbie is a massive, massive shit talker. This is a thing that she is a shit talker, and somebody decided that they were going to let us know.
This is what happens when you have an amazing atheist on.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Thank you for coming, Wesley. Appreciate you. You're adding to the algorithm. We appreciate that. And the entire time this event is going on, and Debbie is basically making it her event. What a surprise.
Everything's her event.
And people had to kiss the ring, even people that are not so bad. They're talking about how great Debbie is, which I'm sure in many instances they may not really feel that way, but they say what they have to say for appearances. This was before I found out that our Congresswoman was the biggest financial beneficiary of an investment in the war machine regarding the Ukraine-Russia conflict. And the sad truth is, how many people in that room were even aware that she is involved with this?
They don't care, though, because they just like her, because they just like her, or they don't. But they pretend they do because they're scared of her. Nobody is coming to any new opinions about her ever. That's the thing. The people that like her, they like her for whatever reason, and most people don't. And I just think
all I can say, and I will conclude with this, is that if you do run against her again, she does not. The one thing about Debbie, as you have said before, she really is the gift that keeps on giving.
Oh.
Like if we raised $400,000, if you add 1 million in front of that 400,000 next time, we will have every piece of financial real estate we will need to run the necessary ads to basically show what a complete blowhard, useless, crooked piece of garbage this representative has been for decades. Sorry, Ken, and anybody else who may see this. This is not the Debbie who was working in the State House in 1992.
No.
This is not who she is. Ever since she has been on Capitol Hill, this has been who she is. And she supports every war. She supports every military budget. She supports every cause that is juxtaposed to the American people. She supports abortion. She'll support LGBTQ rights.
She's a pro-choice, basically a pro-choice Republican.
I don't even think she gives, I wouldn't even dignify that. I think that there are better GOP representatives out there than she is, and I'm sure there are. It's a big country. There's, at least 200 plus of them.
So, and any of them that aren't corporate whores would be preferable. Again, I would vote for a non-corporate Republican before I vote for a corporate Democrat.
But the idea that the number one recipient of financial gain as a result of the Ukraine-Russia conflict in this country is our congressional representative, and it's not close. It's by a wide margin. At some point, you have to wake up. You have to. Because if you don't, we really are going to sink beneath the surface.
Well, I wish that I just don't understand why people are scared of her. It's like, what do you guys think is going to happen? Although it's kind of the same mentality that I feel about people that are scared somehow or feel intimidated by Russia. What is it you think they're going to do? Now, I understand being concerned about China. That I understand.
Yes.
That's valid. Okay. But what are people's concerns about Russia like that? But anyway, so that's what I understand about why are people scared of her? It's like, and yeah, there's probably some people that she has dirt on. There's probably some people that that owe her or whatever it is. I'm sure there's that. But other than those people, what is it?
Everything is about money. When Debbie secures
Good God, people.
Listen, Mayor Josh Levy of Hollywood put out a message the other day that Debbie secured X amount of dollars. I think it was like 1.5 million, which again, you would think is impressive, but in reality, it's not.
But whatever. Yeah. You know what? That's a good thing for them. So it's good.
But this is political bribery. That's what congressional representatives do. They have the ability to get the federal cash into the district and give it to the people that they need to give it to in order to protect them. That's what they do. No matter how crooked they are, no matter how dirty they are, they will always have. And it doesn't mean that the representatives are necessarily on the take themselves. What it does mean is that they benefit financially as a result. I will do it.
Okay.
Okay. Wesley, you've worn out your welcome. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Can't do that on our page.
Yeah. Sorry.
And so we, as you've said before, you don't want to have to do this again,
No.
but you may have to do this again.
People, I really don't. Like it's unfortunate that we're in this position. Like, I wish I lived in a world where my representative was someone like Anna Eskamani.
Sam, do you follow this channel? I'm going to guess you don't. We're both pro-choice.
Oh, for God's sake. My point is that's the only thing in which would make her be that's even remotely Democrat versus Republican.
Thank you for your concern, but we are 100% in favor of women's right to choose.
Yeah, no. That wasn't my point. My point is that's the only thing that distinguishes her between a typical GOPer. No, I absolutely agree. I've never disagreed with her on that. There's several things that, whatever. So,
but again, when it comes to wedge issues, it's easy to pick a side because it doesn't impact corporate special interests.
What we were saying is that if I lived in a district where my congressional representative was, let's say, someone like Anna Eskamani, was just my congressional representative, I wouldn't run for Congress.
You'd have no reason to. You have a representative that is representing you properly.
I would have no. That's not something I would be doing. So, like, and I've said this to him, I'm like, I would love for her to just somehow, for the districting to affect her where she loses, and it, or loses to an independent or a Republican, and that would be an amazing thing, quite honestly. And then I wouldn't have to do this.
Yeah,
that's how I feel. I just like, I feel like I look at her and I look at the fact that she is now blatantly, openly profiting off of
blood.
Well, it's insider trading on investments of things that are like horrible, like
happening because people are dying.
And then the gas prices and what that's doing to the economy and here and the people in Russia. And like, see, that's the thing, you selfish crone. Like it's like how, and this is how she teaches her children, like her and her child invested in this together. So in other words, you bring your kid in on an investment that you're going to make on insider trading on a war that shouldn't be happening. And yet now people are getting killed. And I'm mind blown.
This is how, as a public servant, you get to live in an affluent, upper middle class, suburb, gated community, like where I'm not going to say where, but she lives in Weston. And that
now, in all fairness, there are many, many gated communities in Weston. In fact, it's probably easier to find a gated community in Weston than not a gated community. So the fact that her community is gated is really not relevant.
Listen, Weston may not be as wealthy as Parkland, but it's not that far off.
It's like a giant country club.
Weston is as developed a community as you are ever going to see.
But that's just where she is. Look, and quite honestly, if she adequately represented that community based on those demographics, then that would be fine.
Maybe so. I don't even know if she would be able to go forward.
No. The problem is that she doesn't adequately represent the people in this district. And the only reason she's still there is because we live in a very gerrymandered district with closed primaries.
Maybe the reason she's still there because she is all about the money. That's obvious.
Well, yeah, but the only reason she gets to stay there is how few people actually vote for her. First of all, how many people come out and vote in a primary? How many of those people actually have to vote for her?
Well, a lot of them came out and voted in the primary, but we were ghosted up and down, and candidates who were running in different seats, they wouldn't come out and support us.
But it's still relatively a low number of people out of the general population that even vote at all. And so very few people are actually people that support her. She just gets to sit there.
But there is a huge difference between where things ultimately were 2 years ago, what would be 3 years ago, and ultimately where things would be full circle basically 5 years in.
It's going to be
if ugly. We were to be doing it again, because we would be coming from a position of semi-notoriety as well as name recognition. And
you're the problem with Debbie.
Well, the longer she hangs around, the more she loses supporters, and the more new ones come around that would never support her.
It's the chick candle, the smoke.
Hmm.
That's what it is.
Well, any Breakfast Club reference is a welcome one.
So what do we have coming up?
On Wednesday, we are going to be speaking with Dr. Cobb.
I'm excited about this now. I looked this guy up. He's really cool.
He's almost a centenarian, guys.
He
He's
is.
96.
And he is someone who is a theologian and someone who is an environmentalist. And this is really interesting. It's called the Living Earth Movement. And basically, it's a group of theologians and scientists and environmentalists that have gotten together and created this Living Earth Movement with this concept of, I know it sounds crazy, that no one can live on a dead planet.
Right.
So he is, this is someone who, from what it looks like, from what I've seen, has basically been spending his life fighting for like the planet to be green and healed. So he's the kind of people we would want to talk to.
Absolutely.
And then before that, we have an interesting candidate coming on too.
Yes, we do.
We are going to be speaking with Cynthia Mendez, who is running for Lieutenant Governor of Rhode Island.
And is doing it as part of a slate.
Yeah, there's this slate. There's a very cool non-corporate slate that they have put together up there. And let me again say that the only way I would ever run for a statewide race would be if it was like Rhode Island or Delaware, or, you get the point.
North Carolina.
No, it's way too big.
That's too big.
Way too big.
That's actually almost
No.
more
I'm
convenient
telling
than
you, you've
Florida.
got like New Jersey's too big. You've got Rhode Island, you've got Delaware. That's within the vicinity of
New
it.
Hampshire.
Maybe.
All right, so there's your line.
I mean, maybe, but like,
Let's go
yeah.
on to Wyoming.
I mean, because the idea of it, like, I even think about Ava's race from Arizona, friend Ava Pasova, who ran in Arizona for Congress. But the way the district is cut in Arizona, her district geographically was huge, like almost the entire length of the size of a chunk
and
of
she
Arizona.
did a great job.
Yeah. And to manage to cover that district, like, yeah, impressive, very impressive. Like, it was hard enough to do this.
We hope you guys enjoyed it. This has been a very interesting show.
And we are doing, what else do we have coming up besides that? Is that as far as you go? We have a candidate, and that's all I see up there.
We'll have.
Ooh, the goat lady's coming.
Yes.
Okay, this is very cool, and we have to do it at this time, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So we'll decide whether we do an afternoon live stream or we, record
Oh,
it.
guys, this is
and play
really
it.
cool. This is one of those where I saw an article with something really interesting, and so I took like a screenshot of whatever her information and sent it to him. Like, we should get her on the show. So she's in Australia or New Zealand?
No, she's in Ireland.
In Ireland.
I'm going to speak with my fellow Irish lady.
Okay, but this is the thing. So they're using goats to prevent fires, to prevent the wildfires.
This is almost something that Californians should be thinking about.
Yeah, they're using goats to forage the dry grass, and they're using it. And it's also really good in terms of they're rotating the goats through. And it's like this very nice symbiotic situation that's helping to prevent wildfires. So maybe in a time of extreme climate issues, this might be something to consider.
Hey,
so
we
we're
have
going to
put
be
all the
talking
ideas on the
to,
table.
her name is Melissa Jukin, and we're going to be speaking with her. Plus, I'm really hoping there's a good accent situation there.
I'd imagine.
Like that, every time you do it, you sound like the Lucky Charms guy. Like, I can't.
Red balloons, yellow stars, blue
It's just
rainbows,
wrong.
blue horses.
You know what was on last night that I can never not watch it is The Kingsman. I love it. The first one, the original. Like, I cannot not be into that movie, and I do definitely have. I have a Colin Firth thing.
I have to see In the Name of the Father.
Yeah, well, that's well, any Daniel Day-Lewis movie is definitely a big bonus. That was a great movie, but no, it's a Colin Firth thing. He's quite yummy.
Fair enough. So with that said, we appreciate you guys. Hope you enjoyed. Share it, spread it.
We'll see you guys on Wednesday.
Have a good night.